Payday and $5,000 hits your account, same as last year. You sit down and go through the bills. Rent is the same, car payment is the same, insurance is the same. You do the math, it should be fine. But it's not fine. Last year you had $800 left over at the end of the month. This year, $200. You didn't move, you didn't change jobs, you didn't buy anything new. Same apartment, same car, same life. But $600 just disappeared. Where did it go? Let's look at what actually changed. At the grocery store, you're spending around $180 a week now. Last year it was $150. Same cart, same items, same store, the price just moved. At the gas station, you're paying $4.10 a gallon. Last year it was $2.90. Your commute didn't get longer. The drive is exactly the same, but you're spending an extra $50 a month just to get to work. Your credit card rate went up too. Same card you've had for years. Last year the rate was 19.9%. Now it's 22.4%. You're not spending more, but you're paying more just for carrying the balance. That burger combo you used to grab for $12 is $15 now. The restaurant didn't move, the portions didn't get bigger, the price just went up. And your car insurance is up $25 a month. No accidents, no new claims, just up. Now add it all together. Groceries, gas, interest, food, insurance, each one a small bump on its own. But combined, you're spending around $600 more every month than you were last year. That's $7,200 a year. Your paycheck didn't change, but where it goes did. So what's actually driving this? Most people look at rising interest rates and think the Federal Reserve did something, and they're not wrong, but that's only half the picture. The more important question is why the Fed's hands are tied in the first place. Here's what's actually happening. When the US escalated military operations against Iran, the defense budget went up by roughly $1.5 trillion. That's not a small adjustment, that's a 40% increase. And that money has to come from somewhere. The government can't collect that much in taxes overnight, so it does what it always does when it needs money fast: it borrows. It issues treasury bonds. Essentially, the government goes to the market and says, "Lend us money and we'll pay you back with interest." Now here's where it hits you directly. When the government suddenly floods the market with bonds, there's too much supply. To attract buyers, it has to offer higher interest rates. Think of it like a market stall with too much bread. If nobody's buying, you have to make the deal sweeter. And once treasury bond rates go up, everything else follows, because treasury bonds are the baseline. Every other interest rate in the economy, mortgages, auto loans, credit cards, they all price themselves relative to that baseline. So the government borrows more, the baseline rate goes up, and suddenly your credit card is charging you an extra 2.5% on a balance you've been carrying for years. You didn't take on more debt. The cost of existing debt just went up. That's the first wire connecting Iran to your wallet, through the bond market, straight to your interest rate. Now let's talk about your paycheck itself. Maybe you didn't get a bonus this year. Maybe your raise was smaller than expected or didn't happen at all. And on paper, that's hard to explain because the economy doesn't look catastrophic. GDP is holding. Unemployment is relatively low. Your company's revenue isn't dramatically down. So why is the money not moving in your direction? Here's what's happening underneath. When the defense budget jumped by $1.5 trillion, that money had to be pulled from somewhere else in the federal budget. Welfare programs got cut by around 10%. Energy assistance for low-income households, gone. 17 education programs were consolidated or eliminated. Small business loan support was scaled back significantly. Now those cuts might sound distant from your life, but follow the chain. Take the elderly neighbor who was receiving $100 a month in heating assistance. That money is gone now, so she spends $100 less every month. She's not going to the corner pharmacy as often. She's skipping the diner on Tuesdays. She's buying less at the local grocery store. That grocery store sees fewer customers. The pharmacy moves less product. The diner cuts back its lunch staff. None of these businesses are in crisis, but their margins got a little thinner, their outlook got a little more cautious, And when it came time to hand out bonuses or approve raises, the answer was no. Multiply that across millions of households that lost some form of support, and you have a quiet, slow contraction spreading through the consumer economy, not a crash, just a chill. Your company isn't failing. It's just operating in an economy where a large slice of consumers quietly lost purchasing power. And the place that shows up first is your compensation. That's the second wire. Welfare cuts reduce consumer spending. Consumer spending drives business revenue, and business revenue determines whether you get a raise. So your interest rates went up, your bonus didn't come, and on top of all that, everything at the store costs more than it did last year. That last part is the one that's hardest to pin down, because on the surface, nothing obvious broke. Factories are running, farms are producing, supply chains aren't collapsing. So why is your grocery bill higher? Here's what's happening at the production level. When the military budget expands by $1.5 trillion, that money doesn't just sit in an account somewhere. It goes into contracts, missiles, aircraft components, military vehicles, uniforms, electronics, fuel systems. Factories that used to split their output between civilian and military products now have government contracts that take priority. Steel that used to go into appliances is going into weapon systems. Plastics that used to go into consumer goods are going into military equipment. Textile mills running around the clock on uniforms have less capacity for everything else. So civilian supply quietly shrinks, not dramatically, not all at once, but consistently across dozens of industries simultaneously. At the same time, the other side of the equation moves in the opposite direction. Military personnel are receiving higher pay. Defense industry workers are getting overtime and bonuses. That money flows back into the consumer economy, more people with more dollars chasing the same shrinking pool of civilian goods. More demand, less supply, prices go up. That's not a theory, that's just arithmetic. And here's the part that keeps it going. Normally, the Federal Reserve would raise interest rates to cool inflation down. But as we saw in the first layer, rates are already elevated because of bond market pressure. Raising them further risks tipping the economy into a recession. So the Fed holds back, the inflation doesn't get cooled, and prices stay high. Your grocery bill isn't high because of bad luck or corporate greed. It's high because the production economy quietly reoriented itself around a war, and civilian goods ended up on the short end of that shift. That's the third wire. War production pulls resources away from civilian goods, supply shrinks, prices rise, and it shows up in your cart every single week. So let's put it all together. Your paycheck didn't shrink. $5,000 is still $5,000, but the world that paycheck lives in changed around it. In the first layer, we saw how the government borrowing $1.5 trillion to fund a war flooded the bond market, pushed interest rates up, and landed directly on your credit card statement. In the second layer, we saw how cutting welfare programs to offset that spending quietly drained purchasing power from millions of households, slowed the consumer economy down, and took your bonus off the table. In the third layer, we saw how war production pulled industrial resources away from civilian goods, shrank the supply of everyday products, and pushed your grocery bill higher every single week. These aren't three separate problems. They're one problem moving through three different channels. It starts here. The US goes to war with Iran. The defense budget increases by $1.5 trillion, and from that single decision, three things happen simultaneously. The government issues bonds to cover the cost. Rates go up. Your interest payments go up. Welfare programs get cut to offset the spending. Consumer purchasing power drops. Your bonus disappears. Factories shift to war production, civilian supply shrinks, your grocery bill climbs. Three channels, one source. And the reason it's hard to see is because none of it arrives with a label. Your credit card statement doesn't say Iran surcharge. Your pay stub doesn't say war budget adjustment. Your grocery receipt doesn't say military reallocation. It just looks like life got more expensive. But it didn't get more expensive randomly. The money didn't vanish, it moved. It got redirected out of your pocket, through the bond market, through the federal budget, through the factory floor, and into a war. That's what actually happened to your $600. So here's the question worth sitting with. Did your paycheck get smaller, or did the path your money travels just change? Because nothing on paper looks that different. Same salary, same bills, same life, but somewhere between your bank account and the end of the month, $600 is going somewhere it didn't used to go. Not because you changed anything. Not because you spent more. Not because you made bad decisions. The path changed, quietly, structurally, in places you never see: the bond market, the federal budget, the factory floor. A decision made about a conflict thousands of miles away sent a signal through the financial system. That signal traveled through interest rates, through consumer spending, through supply chains, and it arrived in your wallet. No announcement, no warning, just a little less left over at the end of the month. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. The question was never whether your money was enough. The question is where it's being sent before it ever reaches you.